Okay, it's just. Okay. Hey, all y'all out there, Backwoods Samurai, coming at you live with a video. Alright. Got my boken. Don't want to hear any bull about this. I'm going to show you how to tie an Ito wrap. Now, this is not enough to tie the entire grip. I would need about maybe 4 or 5 times this amount of paracord. But it's going to be enough to show you how to do it the basic form. Now, what we do first, put that to the side. Now, what we do is we take both ends of the paracord, pull it between our fingers, so we have 2 equal lengths, and then we find the center loop. We pinch the center loop like this, and pull through our fingers, making sure they're both equal. Then we take our blade, flip it around to about here. Then take your blade and wrap it around like so. It should cross in the center of the blade. It should cross in the center of the grip. And you bring it around like this. Cross again. Make sure that the 2 sides of the wrap are pushed together. And repeat the process. Making sure you keep even. Making sure you pull them tight. And try to keep as even spacing as you can. Like so. Keep doing it like this. And then take both pieces, twirl them around once, pull, and then make sure they're equal and go around like so. The best way to make sure they stay equal is to look at the side and push up the paracord until it's smashed up against each other. Now, tying a paracord Ito wrap is relatively easier than tying a traditional one with wide silk bands, but it does take much longer. This would be much easier to do inside of a vise though. But again, you want to make sure you have relatively the same spacing in between your lines, which in this case would be right up against each other, like so. And this is what your paracord Ito wrap should look like, relatively, when you're done. And you keep doing it over and over again. Again, making sure you keep the paracord kind of even. And then, once you're done, your wrap should look something like this. See if it will pick it up on the camera. Give me a minute. Your wrap should look something like this when you're done. So you can see, and relatively even spacing on the sides. And like so. Remember, you can always take the wrapping off and redo it. So if you screw up the first time, it's not that bad. Just unwrap it and rescrew it. Traditionally, I think you've seen enough. Traditionally, Japanese swordsmiths would put gray skin underneath the Ito wraps silk bands, which are what you wrap the sword in, actually. But yeah, you would traditionally put ray skin underneath. On my boken, on this boken, I wrapped it very tightly with green yarn, which I have found yarn to be a very good underwrapping for a sword because the cotton doesn't allow for the paracord to flex. Your wrap should be fairly tight. If you can loosen your wrappings very easily, then your wrap is not tight and it should be taken off and redone. And traditionally, a katana will have little decorations underneath the grip called minukis, which was supposed to add to the beauty and increase the ability to grip. Although mine does not have minukis underneath it, because on the thickness of this grip, because this sword's thickness would be far too wide if I had put minukis underneath it. I have another example of where the hell is it? Here it is. I have another example of an Ito wrap that I made. My machete. You can kind of see I put a color flashlight there. Oh, here it is. You can see I've put a Ito wrap on the machete. So it would be very strong. This wrapping does not move at all, which leads me to believe that if you use paracord, because this has a paracord under wrapping, if you use a paracord wrapping, that it will actually make it hold much tighter. Because the paracord will naturally grab on to the other, because the overwrapping paracord will naturally grab onto the paracord on top. And go back to this. Once again, when tying an Ito wrap, you want to make sure that it is fairly tight, like so. And don't be afraid to ask someone to help you when you tie an Ito wrap. Like, ask them to hold the grip or something with a blade. Because A, that will make it easier on you. Because you won't just be fighting the material. Because you won't be fighting the thing you're trying to wrap. And B, it will make it easier because you'll be able to focus more on wrapping and keeping everything nice and straight than having to worry about the weapon slipping out of your hand. Now there's something you should know. The longer and wider the wrapping is, the longer and wider the grip, the more material you need for the wrapping. My opinion is that you should always take the width of whatever you're wrapping and the length. Then you always take the length of what you're wrapping and times that by 3. And that's relatively how much paracord you'll need, more or less. Probably going to be more. And you should always figure out how many inches will it take to do one cross pattern, which is where you have it, which is where you take the material around, like so, cross it, line up, and cross.
Timothy goes to school here on Cubo.
Oh, hey, engineer.
How you do that is relatively simple.
Everything there is to know about trains. Cabooses, couplers,
You loosen it up to the point where you can take it off.
name it, I love it. Today, however, I discovered the best thing ever there is to know about trains. You want to know what it is?
And you measure
Well,
how big the loop is.
secret about
Minus, you would take a Sharpie and mark where the loop ends, then measure from the mark to the end of the loop. And that's how many inches or so that will take to wrap one cross wrap around it. So you also know how many inches of you'll take that times the length of the handle, and then you minus that by how much paracord you have, and that will give you a rough estimate of how much paracord you have left over, more or less. Of course, I got lucky, and on my machete, I had the perfect amount of paracord to do both wrappings. On the Boken, I also had the perfect amount, except I had to cut off about maybe 6 or 7 inches. And, okay, that's all I have for you today. So until next time, Backwoods Samurai, to all y'all, be crazy rednecks. Make sure your wrappings on your on your axes, on your swords, and all that are always tight as a drum. And be safe in using your weapons. I'm out. Peace.